Okay, so we are recording, and this is just going to be a real simple introduction because we're doing this live here at the National Career Development, I want to say Institute, but it's Association, NCDA. I'm here with Brad Minton. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. It is awesome to be with you, Mark.
Yeah, and you've been on the podcast before on a panel, and I've been on your podcast before, but we've been doing this dance for about 5-6 years, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about job search trends. And at this particular point, it's wild out there, right? It might be wilder now than it was after the pandemic. I don't know how you view it, but your thought?
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough, especially as I work with the Gen Zs, the recent college grads.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tumultuous time. It's very difficult when you're getting a lot of messages that these are the best practices. These are the things that you should be doing. These are the approaches that you want to take. And you feel to some degree that you're doing that.
Right.
And you're barely treading water.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of the young kids that I'm working with, really coping with that mental side and understanding the sort of the difference between what they've known, what they've grown accustomed as being Gen Z, immediate satisfaction. Everything you can get yesterday. When they're entering into the job market, this is maybe for some of them the first time that they ever met that serious resistance where you have to put in time and detail, consistency, perseverance for extended periods of time.
It's that discussion with college students is pretty layered. Because one, you just wonder, as I look at it, and I've asked this of other career counselors here from college, from higher ed, why don't they start earlier than they actually do? And in fact, they leave it up to the student to engage the center as opposed to school requiring from freshman year, as opposed to, oh, I'm getting ready to leave. Let me go get this now when it's harder. You're a year late these days. You're light years behind.
Yeah. And 100%. And I think the individuals at this conference, the individuals in this community really understand that and get that and are really working hard to embed career development in curriculum and to really ensure, even at the community college level, I'm hearing this in the Metro Detroit area, community colleges now are really intentional about embedding internship programs into their curriculum, regardless of the program. If they are any sort of career-focused program that students are walking away with certifications, degrees, credentials, they need to have that experience that they can leverage then into their job search. So I know it's happening. It's just I do feel a little bit frustrated for these graduates. They were starting college during the pandemic. They were starting college in the COVID area. And I think for them, they did miss a lot of the ability early on to make those connections, and they just didn't rebound from it. And so the class of 23, 24, probably 25 to a certain degree, they're still going to be struggling in a little way of playing catch up.
Yeah. I think that you mentioned community colleges, I think you're right. And I remember a few years ago, I went to visit one from just the invitation to come look at their career center. Man, these people were hopping. I won't mention the name of it for several different reasons, but they had a small staff, but they said from practically sun up to sundown, they're busy. And they really love their holiday. They really love the time that they have during this time where most of them do a lot of the at least the ones that do career counseling for higher ed, they're taking advantage of doing the professional development during this time. But all that to be said, I think one of the things that I see, at least now, is that still a lot of them are not taking advantage or looking for opportunities for internship earlier on. Just as because now even though the college degree is not going away as far as the requirement very quickly, but there is an advantage for having 2 or 3 internships as opposed to just having that 1 or 2 months from when you're going to graduate. So, in your experience, or have you seen the success rate go up with ones having more internships, as opposed to ones are just waiting till their senior year just to have that one?
Absolutely. And I have a client that comes top of the mind, and I love this kid. I think he's got so much potential, but he fit into that category of there wasn't that sense of urgency in the beginning. There
Mhm.
wasn't someone to connect with him in the early stages when he's planning courses freshman year.
Uh-huh.
Hey, you might want to consider, have you thought about joining a student organization? Have you thought about volunteering? Have you thought about connecting with this particular employer, that particular employer? Have you thought about even career fairs? All of
Mhm.
these different things. There needs to be that intervention in the very beginning. And I think career services and academic advising should be,
Hand in hand.
yeah,
You would think,
yeah,
but I understand too, in talking to many of them, politics get in the way.
yeah,
That institution usually wants to put their money here and not here with the career service center. But you got to do the best you can, walk on water or make something float or whatever you do.
right.
And this is the call of the hour now, because I know too, having spoken at a couple of places in recent years, that there's a crisis. There's a crisis in connecting the students with the institution. The students are paying for the institution. There's no connection as far as the mission, as what they're supposed to do, other than go to class and or not.
Yep. And I think it starts at orientation. I think these messages really have to be communicated in the very beginning that this institution is not just about attending class.
Right.
It's not just about putting your butt in the seat. It is about creating a better version of yourself and a more marketable version of yourself so that when the time comes for you to move on to what's next,
Mhm.
you really can demonstrate that you tap into that potential and that you are going to deliver the goods, that you've got value that you can now come meet a pain point for a prospective employer. And I think when there's an intentionality behind that, we can really corral people into delivering that message and embed coursework right in the
Mhm.
very beginning. We have capstone courses for students. I think there's a really great movement to say, let's flip it on the other side. How can we inject that career development focus in the very beginning?
Mhm.
And so that it just becomes habitual. Every year, I need to do these types of things. Every year, I need to connect with these types of people so that I can accomplish that ultimate goal.
Right. Yeah, I really believe that. And then, in your view, what trending up as far as how Gen Z or successful Gen Zs are connecting with employers and recruiters? And in your opinion, what's trending downward, maybe?
Hmm. Yeah. Pretty good question. I think one of the things that I'm seeing just in terms of, and hopefully I'm going the right direction with, I think one of the things that for me has been coming up time and time again, particularly with this group, with the individuals that I work with, is understanding and embracing how important networking is
Yeah.
and the reluctance to do even with that understanding.
Ooh.
And it could be generational differences. It could be the pandemic. It could be that this is a virtual age now. These are kids that have been isolated and also do the most amount of their communication through an online virtual format. They
Yeah.
don't really understand concept of relationship building and
Mhm.
how critical that is to every facet of life, not just the job search, but
Right.
even more so in the job search.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the part that is continues to be a barrier is that they're used to things being a certain way and realizing that relationships can't be built overnight. And if you want to have a successful referral for system that you can build to open up doors to opportunities, it doesn't come overnight. It's not immediate. And it takes time, it takes persistence to connect to multiple individuals sometimes in order to make that happen.
And I think that's fair because it's always been up and down. Depending who you talk to, it could be trending up or it could be trending down, depending upon you. Because a lot of Gen Z, they don't. That's not the first thing they're willing to do.
Yeah.
They'd rather spend the time still applying to hundreds of jobs
Yeah.
rather than connecting with three people. And I think, but that's something the universe can help with. To me, I've advised over the years, the alumni are supposed to be your friend as well as the career service center. They can connect you alumni in your field. You can make time with them because they know that's what they're expecting. Those are easy wins, you would think, but because it's not always convenient to do, then, and I don't know if there's any job search advice these days that's successful, that's going to be convenient, that's going to land right in your lap. You say, what's going to get me the golden ticket? I can go to Willy Wonka land now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that one of the reasons for that resistance is because it is hard and it's not one of those things that's always the most comfortable. And I think there's that internal and external battle many young people have with it. The external is that this takes time. It's not easy to do, and I don't
Mhm.
have the tools to do it. And then the internal is I have no idea what to say. I have no idea what to offer this person. I don't even know where to start because, as you're pointing out, a lot of them are not getting this when it matters.
Right.
They're not getting this when it could make a difference to build those skills so that it just becomes what you do. You develop more savviness to be able to communicate with employers by attending career fairs,
Yeah.
by going to these events, by volunteering on campus or joining student orgs and all these different things,
Hmm.
learning that help develop those skills.
You can take that. Was that was yours
Oh,
or
this
was that?
one's fine.
That okay, I'm sorry. I thought you could toss that. Yes, thanks. I'll cut that part out. Maybe I'll cut that out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, very
Uh,
good.
sometimes it's fun to have that stuff.
Uh,
For but and you know what's interesting that alumni are human. You know what's interesting? Some of them get into anime. They get into Pokemon cards. And you know where I'm going here? There are connections. Just because they're working one doesn't mean that they don't have other interests that you could be into as well and connect on that level. Maybe scrolling through LinkedIn for alumni might be an initial strategy, but then look for what they're interested in. Maybe they're on some kind of online gaming situation, or maybe they're part of a club or a society or organization that might be interested and maybe connect with them through that way. The first initial isn't, I just want to use you, is I'm interested in what you're interested in. There might be some connection because we went to the same school.
yes, yes. And I think what you're saying is so incredibly important for anybody to really remember is that at the end of the day, the conversations that you have and the communications that you're going to make with people are built on human connection.
Right.
And I think humans, at the end of the day, really do want to help. And many professionals, no matter how senior their positions may be,
Mhm.
they know what it's like. They
Right.
understand and have an empathy towards where a young person is in their life and looking up and going, "Oh my gosh, this world is so big and so overwhelming, and I don't know where to start." And there's an empathy towards that, and that can be an incredible asset and an incredible tool to be able to utilize. But it does start with that human connection.
Absolutely. And the other side is that there are also people and introverts who are listening. I know we'd rather help somebody than to be helped. That is also networking. You could go help people, and part of the ecosystem is if you help, then they'll help. They may not help you directly all the time, but it gets passed around and come back to you.
Yes.
And I think that's underutilized and untalked about because it's something that you have to initiate. And I think that's maybe some of the that what people say, I hate to initiate the conversation.
Yeah.
But a lot of times if you think and say, let me go help someone, then it doesn't become that much of a burden because that's what drives that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the other piece to that resistance for so many people is the feeling as though their relationships are transactional. And what you just said is the remedy towards that.
Yep.
If you lean into your own altruism, that really helps build that bridge. It makes it feel less, quote, sleazy
Yeah.
or abusive or
It's purposeful.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think it's a really great reminder that even if you are a student or a recent graduate, there's still value that you can offer someone. And that could be a tremendous bridge builder that can create a mentorship like relationship and create a referral to a job. They can create all sorts of different opportunities.
Let's talk about your podcast for a second. You just started it back.
Yeah.
And how's that going so far?
It's going great. Going great. I actually just transitioned to since we're here talking about podcast weekend,
Right.
just transitioned to using Riverside. Been using
Okay.
a different platform and loving that, loving the tools. And yeah, it's been a very nice transition. And I certainly have just felt in terms of guests that I've been able to bring on here recently, it's just a constant feeling of, oh, this is where it should be going. And
Right.
I'm so inspired every time I'm finding myself in these conversations with individuals. I'm sure you do too,
Yeah.
where I'm like, this is exactly where I wanted to go with this. And I'm so glad that they're talking about it. And so yeah, that part is really fulfilling.
And just to let the audience know that Brad and I are presenting on a panel tomorrow. By the time you hear this, we would have done that. But that's why he brought up podcasting and that's that. So people can get a hold of you where?
Through my website, menttobecareer.com, and that's spelled M-I-N-E, not N-E-A-N. Menttobecareer.com. You can email me at menttobe@gmail.com.
And the podcast name again is
Your Career GPS.
Your Career GPS. There's a lot of GPS stuff out there, so just make sure you look for Your Career GPS. Don't get it mixed up with some of the other GPS podcasts that are. Listen to Brad.
Exactly. I made sure it wasn't.
Very good, sir. And you're doing that solo because I think the last time you were here, you had Cassie on with you. And now you're both doing different podcasts.
Yeah. It's a tremendous launching point, I think. And hopefully that's something that we'll be able to talk about tomorrow a little bit, what ultimately it could lead to and
Right.
and some of those possibilities. Kathy was someone who I got introduced to years ago through a mutual connection because she had an interest in it. She was a connoisseur of podcasts and always dreamed of doing her own. And I said, you know what? This is somebody who's passionate about it. This is somebody who wants to create great content and has a vision in mind, and brought her on as a co-host, really got her legs under her and said, you know what? I'm ready. I'm going to
Yes,
I'm
and
gonna
it's
start
such a
my own.
great story.
Yeah.
It's really great. And over the years, I've heard people come and listen and say, I'm doing this because you're doing it.
Yeah.
Not that I did anything really brilliant, because I came after Chris Russell, who did Career Cloud Radio for so many years. And still to this day, no longer what it used to be when Chris had it. But because I listened to him, I started my podcast and he ended up being a guest on mine. We actually worked together on a few projects. That meant a lot to me. And I know for Cassie, that meant a lot for her as well. Just you gave her a shot. Brad, thanks so much for joining us here in the Voice of Job Seekers. And I'm going to probably have you back some point again. Because you are the Gen Z whisperer. Although don't mix that up with somebody else who's doing Gen Z whispering.
Yeah.
But my voice depending on you to give me what's going on with them younger people.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening. You guys have a great day and we'll see you next time.